We want to bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross, who's been watching this thing. Bryan, had you on yesterday. Good morning to you. Your note this morning talking about that long journey ahead, calling it a dusty one and a dry one.
Yeah, if you look at the circulation here this morning on the satellite, well, it's a very healthy looking circulation. I mean, it's almost perfectly circular, which tells you that the wind flow in the atmosphere is very conducive for intensification, even though it's speeding along at 22 miles per hour. But it can't intensify because there's so much dry air all out around it here that it's not allowing the thunderstorms to get going. If you notice where the thunderstorms are, that's these bright kind of reddish things that you see dotted around here, and there's almost none of that in the circulation right now. So when you have a large circulation that doesn't have any thunderstorms, it's just waiting to, all the mechanics are in place, but it needs the moist air in order to get going. So let's see here as it heads west what it's going to encounter. There, when we look at it close up on the satellite, here you can see that the winds to the north are quite strong in here, but to the south there's not much. That's because it's just speeding along from east to west, and the winds extend out about 50 miles now. So it's growing in size up this way, not growing in size at all down here, but that's because it's moving along at such a pretty good clip. But in any case, it is getting larger. Okay, so here's the issue at the moment. Look at the dust here, and so what's happened is, as we've got kind of a healthy circulation going here, it's brought the dust all the way around and wrapped in. So it's really kind of encased in dust now, and there's obviously plenty of dust ahead. Even where you don't see it real thick right in here, look, you can see those kind of just wispy low clouds. Tells you it's very dry and potentially dusty there as well. And it's very dusty over the Caribbean islands there today as a strong plume is going through there. And then we have the water temperatures. You see it's over water temperatures in the upper 70s. It normally wants to be 80 degrees for intensification. So the National Hurricane Center is thinking when it gets into this area here, is more likely to start intensifying. But some of the computer models, notably the European model, say more likely over here before it starts intensifying. So the intensity and the track, it can kind of go together. So that adds some uncertainty in the fact that it is so dusty out there. That may very well, the European may be right, might slow down this intensification process. But we'll see. Once the system is over in this area here, then you have warm water. If it can fight off the dust with that big circulation, it could really get going. But where exactly that's going to happen is an open question. There's the cone from the National Hurricane Center, and you see it takes it until it gets over here, until it gets into the really warm water and lots of energy for intensification. So what does that mean for the islands? The bigger the storm, the more likely to have some effect, obviously, on the Northeast Caribbean. So here is the official forecast from the Hurricane Center, and you see some intensification a little bit more slowly than yesterday, but intensifying in a hurricane in here just about the time it gets to that 80-degree water. Well, we'll see. They're making an estimate based on the computer forecasts here. It takes it all the way up to a Category 3 in this vicinity here. If the system continues to grow in size, that could mean some fringe effects, or it could mean more direct effects if it comes close. So how close might it come? Well, what we do is what they do. We don't do it, actually. We're using the work done by the European Center and by the National Weather Service, and they run the models with a little bit of different information going into it to find the forecast uncertainty by the spread of the models. So you see, they're all related to the cone, so the cone really tells the story, but we do have a group of them down here that are close enough to the islands that there could be some effect. But if you look at the consensus where most of the packing is, it's right there in the middle of the cone. So that's what the National Hurricane Center uses. But notice some of them are faster and some are slower than the cone. So if they're faster, then we'll see how that jibes with the steering to the north. So you have speed, you have intensity, all these different factors, plus exactly what the steering is farther to to the north. So there, well, the consensus has actually shifted down a little bit. Just look at that with a new model just coming in. But anyway, it's right down the middle of the cone. That's the way the consensus normally works. So there it is on the model, and you can see this is a good size, healthy storm, and some strong winds are just fringing Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. This is on Sunday, so we're just going to be ready for that possibility, remembering that the strongest winds are going to be on the north side or the northeast side of the storm, away from the islands on this kind of a track. All right, so here when we look at the big group of models, so this is looking at the four main ones we're looking at these days, the GFS and the European as always, but then the two AI models, one from Google and one from the European Center. You can see this diversification. First of all, look out in front here. The one from the European Center here, the AI model, makes it go faster, and so all the L's are out there. The Google model is a little farther south, annoyingly close to the Caribbean islands. The European is a little bit farther north. So when we look at the whole thing to get some diversification there, we can see more or less what the cone is telling us. We can see that we're going to have to be watching for the islands here on Sunday, because it's going to be a little bit of a close call. I mean, odds are it will stay north, but we're not 100% sure about that. All right, let's go forward in time here. So there's Sunday and Monday, keeping an eye on Tuesday up here. And now we see things spread out. So remember the green ones, that's the AIFS. Notice they tend to be grouped over here. There's the faster moving ones that start making the turn later, although some of them are spread way across here. So we have this significant uncertainty on Tuesday. Either there's a subset that comes over here near the Bahamas, but the main core of them, the most likely place, is turning up before the east coast of the U.S. and the Bermuda then. Of course, Bermuda being over here, might have to watch it depending on how sharp that turn is. But a lot of them take it between Bermuda and the East Coast. And let me add, for not this weekend coming up, but the following weekend and late in the week, this could be very dangerous surf and could have coastal effects on coastal communities and barrier islands and so forth if we get a big hurricane just offshore. So we're going to bear that in mind for late next week. And then here we are next Thursday, and you see lots of possibilities, but there's a pretty good group over here near the southeast U.S. So we're not letting our guard down here, even though the odds favor it being offshore. There's a healthy group of possibilities still that could affect the southeastern U.S. So anyway, we're a long way from that. This is Thursday, the 21st, and here we are on the 12th. So this is 9 days in advance, farther than we would normally forecast, but now we have the tools to show you the uncertainty at that range, so there you are. But anyway, let's not hang any hats on that, but let's not let down our guard. That's the bottom line, guys.
Yeah, I think, when you talk about impact, I mean, indirect or direct, I think we'll have some sort of impact to talk about, from large swells to maybe something worse, hopefully not. But I think also from the steering to intensity, and intensity forecasts are always really fascinating to me, Brian, especially when we're talking about Erin that's going to be heading into a pretty conducive environment for further strengthening. And the NHC right now is saying significant uncertainty in intensity, but still favoring and going with the higher end of model guidance with a Cat 3. Who's to say it couldn't go stronger if we have a good environment, right?
Yeah, but it has to clear the dust. And remember, the dust it's pushed all the way into the islands. So, does it find a pocket? I mean, we're talking about trying to really micromanage the dust here to figure out whether there's a pocket before it gets to the islands and exactly how all that moves. So, yes, absolutely. When they forecast a Category 3, you prepare for a Category 4, always. This is pretty large. It looks like it's, getting large and forecast to be larger. Larger storms normally don't spin up so quickly, so we wouldn't expect some sort of overnight surprise with a larger envelope like we're seeing with Erin right now. But obviously, when you have a lot of dust and that adds a real level of uncertainty and on intensification, as the Hurricane Center noted in their discussion. So anyway, we have plenty of time is the good thing. We'll see how this evolves with the dust. If it can tap into moisture to the south, it'll push the dust away. That's one of the sort of uncertain and difficult to predict, impossible to predict features that we'll see as it moves on to the west.
I guess that's one of the things to appreciate, maybe not appreciate about hurricane forecasting is the intricacies and the if this happens, then this happens. But if this happens, well, then that leads to this outcome.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot of that.
The chaos theory.
That's very well put, Marissa. That's perfect, yes.
Well, that's why we appreciate having you, Bryan, to help talk about the stuff that we don't want to. No, appreciate it, Bryan. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Bryan Norcross. We'll be seeing you throughout the week and next couple of weeks with more on Erin. Thanks, Bryan.
Okay.